Beneath Synergen Industries, they ran the experiment no one was meant to survive. Volunteers with nothing left to lose, reborn as something more. But one became destruction, the other became a force of balance. They tried to bury Project Exodus, but now the city will rise or fall between two men forged by the same storm. Beneath the glass towers of Synergen Industries, far below the polished lobbies and public research labs, was a place that didn't officially exist. Sub-Level 9, locked behind biometric checkpoints and concrete reinforced with alloy mesh. It was home to Project Exodus, the company's most secret and ethically gray initiative. It operated without oversight under the veil of terminal consent forms and desperate hope. Here there were no windows, only sterile lighting and silence, broken by the hum of machines and the occasional footstep of a passing technician. The volunteers, handpicked from hospices, shelters, and battlefields, sat confined in reinforced pods. Their diagnoses were final, their timelines short. Each had signed waivers relinquishing rights in exchange for two things: financial security for their families and the faint, dangerous promise of survival. Rob Matthews, a soft-spoken mechanic from Detroit with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, lay in pod 6. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and metal. His face was pale, skin waxy, ribs prominent beneath the hospital gown. He stared at the ceiling, eyes dry as overhead lights buzzed softly. The IV in his arm delivered a glistening silver-blue serum, thick with microscopic nanites, designed to rewrite human biology from the inside out. In the pod beside him sat Tank, an ex-Special Forces operative whose real name was long buried under redacted files. His skin was crisscrossed with scars, his jaw clenched, eyes hollow. Rob tried to offer a smile, more out of habit than hope. But Tank didn't move. He didn't need to. He looked like a man already at war. The moment the serum completed its cycle, the screaming began. It started with Subject 3, her body spasmed violently, bones cracking audibly as her muscles bulged unnaturally. Then Subject 7 exploded in a geyser of heat and flame. Her pod evaporated in a blink. Red lights blared, alarms screamed, scientists ran. But there was no controlling what came next. Tank's body convulsed, then arched upward, mouth open in a silent roar. His veins lit with blue-white energy pulsing like lightning trapped beneath flesh. The air itself seemed to recoil. Then with a sound like thunder cracking concrete, Tank erupted. Electricity shot through the chamber, arcing in wild, chaotic bolts. Glass shattered, consoles fried. One researcher burst into flames mid-run. Another was thrown against the wall, her spine folding like paper. Pods exploded, screams turned into static. Rob couldn't move. His body shook as currents surged through the chamber, but the lightning danced around him, never through him. He collapsed unconscious as his IV burst, releasing the remaining serum into his bloodstream. When he awoke, the world had gone quiet. Smoke curled lazily through the ruin. The room was scorched, panels blackened, bodies still. The faint hum of distant generators was the only sign that Synergen hadn't been reduced to rubble. Rob coughed and sat up. Pain he'd grown used to, his tumors, his bones, was gone. His body felt light, whole. A piece of twisted metal near him shifted, gently, like pulled by an unseen force. He stared at it, then at his trembling hand. The metal was reacting to him. Rob Matthews crawled from the wreckage, past corpses and cracked pods, into the flickering hallway beyond. Alone, but not powerless anymore. The first blackout struck at 2:14 a.m., a sudden, complete loss of power across 6 city blocks in Brooklyn. Surveillance cameras fizzled out, stoplights blinked into darkness, generators failed. In the silence that followed, the only sound was the distant hum of electricity, building towards something unnatural. By dawn, the city was in chaos. Cell phone footage flooded the internet, blurry clips of a massive figure shrouded in arcs, a blue fire, lightning coiling around his body like a living storm. He tore through a power substation in Queens, bare hands liquefying transformers. Sparks rained from ruptured cables, steel melted like wax beneath his feet. Cars stopped dead, elevators froze between floors. Patients in hospitals were rushed to backup systems, some too late. The media had no answers. Officials blamed freak electrical failures, but On the 85th floor of Synergen's corporate tower, the truth was undeniable. "This cannot go public," barked CEO Jonathan Reeve, voice shaking as he slammed his palm into his conference table. "If word gets out that one of our test subjects is leveling infrastructure, it's over. The stock, the grants, everything." In the room with him were trembling scientists and PR officials rehearsing lies, localized surges, environmental anomalies. They knew it was a lie. The figure terrorizing the city was Tank, Subject 9, Synergen's crown jewel of human augmentation, now an uncontrolled force of destruction. Worse still, he wasn't alone. On a lower floor, hidden from the public and even the press, Rob Matthews lay in a recovery room. He had survived the Exodus event, but at a cost Synergen hadn't predicted. His cancer was gone. His cells hummed with strange energy. When he touched metal, it responded. Bed sheets shifted, electrical monitors flickered when he passed. They gave him an offer, a settlement check big enough to buy his silence, a second chance at life, free hospitals, of reporters. "Go home," said the liaison, her voice soft but firm. "Take the payout, let this be over. You were cured. That's the miracle. You don't need to be part of what comes next." Rob stared at the envelope. His name was printed in cold, perfect font, 7 digits, but sleep eluded him. Each night he tossed and turned, haunted by the faces of the other volunteers, those who didn't walk out. He remembered the searing heat, the screams, the moment his body stopped breaking and started changing. It wasn't just survival, it was transformation. And then came the news. Tank had destroyed a commuter bridge during rush hour. Bodies hadn't even been recovered from the river yet. The children's hospital caught in the fallout of a grid surge burned for 5 hours. Every step Tank took sent lightning through the streets like divine punishment. He wasn't lashing out randomly. He was making the world feel what he had felt, betrayed, weaponized, forgotten. Rob understood the pain. He even sympathized. But something had to stop it. He looked down at his hands, the veins beneath his skin faintly glowing. The metal cabinet beside him shivered. He didn't need permission. He didn't need a check. He just needed to act. So Rob walked out of Synergen's facility, the security guards too stunned to stop him. The silence, a complicity, left behind. And in his chest, a new purpose began to rise. Quiet, but burning. Rob Matthews walked through the chaos in silence. Gone were the sterile walls of Synergen. In their place, a city unraveling. Firefighters struggled to contain blazes sparked by failing grids. Police cordons snapped under the strain of growing panic. Ambulances howled into traffic they couldn't pass. And above it all, the sky pulsed with unnatural lightning. Tank's calling card, arcing across rooftops like veins in a dying beast. Rob wore nothing but his old mechanic's jacket, a pair of reinforced gloves, and the will to keep moving. He didn't have armor, he didn't need it. Every step he took, the metal around him responded. Pipes rising, signage twisting, debris shifting. He was in tune with it now. The city's bones moved for him. On 38th Street, a building collapsed inward, weakened by a blown transformer. Rob extended his hand, fingers trembling as he reached out with his mind. Rebar twisted like vines, catching beams mid-fall. Screaming civilians shielded their heads, only to look up and see girders hovering in the air, suspended by a magnetic field that shimmered like heat off asphalt. Someone filmed it, then another, and another. By nightfall, videos of the mysterious figure went viral. A man in a weathered jacket pulling a city bus out of a fractured overpass. A silent savior redirecting a burst of shrapnel with a flick of his hand. Hashtag spread, magnet hero, the shield, Polarity. Rob ignored it all. He wasn't trying to be seen. He wasn't saving people for praise. He moved with purpose, tracking power surges and transformer failures with an almost instinctive sense. Wherever the electrical signatures peaked, he followed, closer each time to the storm's epicenter. Tank wasn't acting on impulse. Rob saw the pattern: substations, bridges, hospitals, emergency networks. Midtown was his target, not for violence alone, but for impact. Shut down the core infrastructure and the city will fall to prolonged, paralyzing darkness. It was a statement, a reckoning. That night, near 10th Avenue, Rob heard the cries. A 10-year-old boy was pinned beneath the twisted remains of a fire escape, his leg trapped beneath steel and brick. His father clawed uselessly at the rubble. blood streaking his hands. Rob approached slowly, arms extended. The metal around the boy shifted, trembled, then rose. Slow, controlled, weightless as mist. The child's father watched in disbelief as his son was freed and gently cradled by levitating debris. You saved him," the man whispered, tears streaking down soot-covered cheeks. "You're a hero." Rob didn't respond. He crouched beside the boy, offered a reassuring nod, and turned away. Above him, the skyline flickered, not with lights, but with energy. He felt it beneath his skin, in the metal studs of the building, and the buzz of loose nails vibrating in gutters. The storm was gathering. Not weather, but a man. Tank. Somewhere in the shadows ahead, he was drawing power into himself, like a battery nearing overload. Rob closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the city's rhythm. The fight was coming, and the city didn't need a name, it needed balance. Midtown was a skeleton of steel and smoke. The heart of the city had collapsed into a battlefield. Abandoned cars twisted around street lamps, storefronts shattered by energy bursts, concrete scorched, black, and lined with fissures. Sirens had long gone silent. Emergency crews had evacuated the last civilians hours ago. All that remained were ruins, ash, and two anomalies born from the same experiment, now destined to collide. Tank emerged from the mangled remains of Substation 42, his hulking frame crackling with cold lightning. His skin pulsed with arcs of volatile energy, eyes white hot like exposed plasma coils. Every step left molten footprints in the pavement, the air distorted around him, humming with pressure. Rob stepped into the street center, his jacket torn, gloves scorched, boots dragging slightly from exhaustion. But the ground beneath his feet vibrated with invisible tension. Loose bolts and traffic signs lifted subtly as if awaiting his command. The city's metal was his ally now, his shield, his sword. Tank grinned, the expression warped by rage. "You should have stayed dead," he growled, voice distorted by the energy seething from his throat. Rob's voice was calm, steady. "I didn't crawl out of that lab to watch you burn the world down." Lightning flared from Tank's shoulders. "They used us," he spat. "Treated us like experiments, disposables. And now you defend them." "I'm not defending them," Rob said. "I'm stopping you." Without warning, Tank roared and hurled a thunderbolt. The sky split. A nearby building exploded as a blast sheared through its core. Rubble rained down. Rob reacted instinctively, summoning a magnetic surge. Steel rods whipped from a wrecked construction site, forming a makeshift shield that diverted the blast into scaffolding with a deafening crash. The fight ignited. They leapt across rooftops and cratered streets, each strike shaking the bones of the city. Tank launched arcs of electric fury, turning lampposts into spears of fire. Rob answered with waves of magnetic force, redirecting metal and shields and missiles. Manhole covers spun like buzzsaws. Support beams flew like javelins. Sparks lit the air like a war zone. Above it all, a low grumble grew, the city's wounded grid buckling under the strain. Amid the chaos, Rob found breath between blows. "We were the same ones," he shouted, "but I chose a different path." Tank bellowed, voice crackling with pain. "Because you had hope. You had something left. I crawled out of that lab and found nothing. No family, no life, just emptiness." Rob dug beneath a bolt and summoned a burst of metal debris. "Then fight the system. Don't punish the people trying to live." Tank hesitated just for a heartbeat. That's when Rob acted. He slammed both hands to the ground. Pipes, scaffolding, signage, rebar, all shot upward. The air roared as hundreds of metal strands twisted into a dome, encasing Tank in a spherical prison of raw steel. Tank howled, thrashing, lightning clawing at the walls, but the charge weakened. The structure absorbed the energy, each pulse feeding back into itself. Finally, Tank dropped to one knee, then collapsed, sparking, breathing, but contained. Rob stood at the edge of the dome, chest heaving, eyes hollow. It's over, and for the first time in days, the city was quiet. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered. Dust hung in the air like memory, coating every shattered window and scorched sidewalk. Fire crews moved cautiously through the rubble, their lights flickering against half-collapsed buildings. The magnetic dome that had imprisoned Tank still pulsed faintly with residual energy, its once vibrant glow fading as Rob Matthews knelt beside it, hands trembling. His breath came in broken waves, blood dried at the corner of his mouth, sparks of magnetic energy crawled across his fingers, flickering like dying fireflies. He didn't move, not yet, not until he was sure Tank would stay down. Then came the sound, the distant wail of sirens growing closer, and beyond them, voices. The crowd had gathered beyond the emergency barricades. The murmurs grew, timid at first, then swelling like a wave. There he is! That's him! Polarity! The name rippled across the gathering like wind through tall grass, born from social media, etched in the digital frenzy of a city desperate for hope. Rob stood slowly, every muscle aching. He didn't acknowledge the crowd. He didn't raise a fist or speak. He just stood, a silhouette against a broken skyline, forged by fire and electricity. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a savior, but something new had emerged from the wreckage. A man not built of war, but called by it. A man who had seen what power could do without restraint, and had chosen something else. Synergen released a statement within hours. Unforeseen energy surge event. Unauthorized experimentation disavowed. Project Exodus terminated. But Rob knew better. He could feel them now, ripples across the city like faint radio waves, drawn to his mind like iron to a magnet. Others, subjects who might have survived, people altered like him. Not all would be stable. Not all would be kind. Some would hide. Others would hunt. As New York began the slow process of rebuilding, signs of hope emerged amidst the rubble. Spray-painted stencils of a masked figure, bending steel, appeared in alleyways. Murals of Polarity began to bloom in subway tunnels and rooftops. Arms outstretched, stopping collapsing beams, shielding children. A guardian, not of flesh, but of force. But Rob didn't linger in the spotlight. He returned to his old mechanic's garage in the Bronx, a half-burnt building with a leaky roof and rusted tools. He fixed what he could with his hands, and what he couldn't, he moved with his mind. The magnetic current never left him. It hummed beneath the surface, alive and waiting, connected to every bolt, rail, and wire in the burrow. It was a gift, a curse, a tether. He walked the city at night, listening to its frequencies, feeling when metal moved where it shouldn't, when something surged unnaturally beneath the surface. Not a superhero, not a soldier, just a man who wouldn't let the next storm go unanswered. And as the skyline glowed with neon and ash, New York had a new protector. One born not from vengeance or fame, but from choice, a force of balance, a name whispered with hope. Polarity.